welcome to Steve's Wood Cave. In this video I'm going to show you how to make this fantastic shooting board. It's based on Robert Waring's shooting board in his book called The Resourceful Woodworker. I'll put a link in the description below so you can find it. And basically it's a 90° and a 45° shooting board. It has this removable 45° fence, has supporting movable fences at either end for 90 degrees, and the 45 easily comes apart and rotates around to go at the other end within seconds. And it all becomes 45 because you push it up against the 90° fence. This fence here is adjustable backwards and forwards in either direction so that this protrudes through and meets the plane blade. That gives full support for the work, you know, when you're shooting. There's a strip of wood at the front here which supports the Lie-Nielsen number 51 shooting board plane, which is behind me here. But this also works with other planes. This top rail has a piece of perspex which matches the perspex at the bottom, and the plane body rides against those two pieces of perspex, and the top one is to stop the plane from tilting should it ever try to do so. There's also a plastic runway which is got self-adhesive glue, and the perspex right underneath at the bottom here is the main one which guides the plane body. And I'm sure hopefully when you see it close up you'll see how this works. Oh, one other thing is this top rail has two ply spacers, one at each end, which lifts this top support rail up, only for use when we've got the Lie-Nielsen 51 plane. So when that goes in there, that ply spacer moves this top rail up so that it doesn't get cut. If I want to use a different plane which has a narrower body, this now won't work. This front rail will be removed. The top rail can move down when I remove this top ply spacer at both ends, and that will come down and meet the top of the smaller plane. This plane has worked for years on an old shooting board, and obviously the Lie-Nielsen 51 only works in that direction against this end. So sometimes if you need to shoot some mouldings, for example, that have to go in the other direction, then this is beneficial. I can use this plane still. This shooting board is basically adaptable, so let's go and have a look at how we make it. Okay, just begin by cutting your board of choice. I've got veneered MDF here, but you can use plywood or just pure MDF if you prefer. I think plywood's better. And cut it to around 24 by 12 inches or 600 by 300 millimeters. And then at this stage I'm just setting it up on the bench so that I can route a couple of slots in it for the end stops. Obviously you've got to cut these slots so that you can take the end stops, and I've done this in two passes. An initial slot which you can see here, and then described in a minute is basically a widening cut, but obviously you need to measure your end stop board first. So now we've cut this side, we need to move the router bit across until it meets this scribed line here. Then we can cut this side, and that should give us a slot which is the width of the plywood. And then we'll flip this around and do the same on the other side. It should come out the same. And here I'm just taking some more ply and creating the end stops. I need two of these, and these are measuring approximately, end dimensions are approximately 207 by 60 by 17.6 millimeters. Okay, so here's one of my slots or housings. This is going to be the end stop, and then another piece that will be machined later will become the adjustable fence against which the plane will hit the end. I'm going to use the wood rat to cut this slot. This is a horizontal table which is a homemade platform that is gripped by the two vices of the wood rat. The handle here moves the horizontal table backwards and forwards. We've got these two stop blocks which are adjustable. So I've made these fit in there. That goes up against the front face of the rat, that's my reference point. I'm just using the hot glue to put a bead along here so that it doesn't come back and forward, so I can't push it back any further than that. I just need 2 or 3 small dabs of glue. That will prevent it moving towards me. The router bit, once I've moved it into position with this line, we'll just go down, along, up until we get through to the bottom. I'm going to go right through this because the bolt in the shooting board will of course go all the way through this piece of ply. That's it, got a slot going all the way through.
So here you need to find yourself some perspex. This is about 4mm thick by about 40mm wide. I've split it into 2 20mm wide pieces on the bandsaw and then just cleaned up with a hand plane using an offcut of wood which is set to the desired thickness and a bunch of clamps.
Okay, got my shooting board base. I've marked out 2 lines, one at 76 and one at 18mm from this edge, and this is where the plane is going to be riding along this portion here, up to 76mm. This is going to be a 4mm wide slot for any dust to fall in, and the perspex will meet on this side of this first line. So I've got a 4mm router bit. I've set it to about 5mm depth. I'm using the wood rat on the horizontal table, and I'm just going to push it all the way through. So I'll push that through and we should have a slot.
Now I'm just using my marking gauge to mark a centre line along one of the pieces of perspex. Now I'm just marking out 5 points along the piece of perspex for holes to be drilled and then countersunk for screws so that it can be screwed to the baseboard.
Okay, it's not critical where these holes go, as long as you've got somewhere to screw the perspex into the baseboard, this should be absolutely fine. I'll do the countersink now. Okay, so we've got the perspex now with the holes drilled and countersunk, as you can see. This slides in between these 2 end stops, and the front face of this perspex has to align with this slot, which is 4mm. So just use it to push the perspex against it so the front edge is flush with the slot. And then we're going to grip it and hold it in place whilst we drill the first hole. Actually, put this clamp on the other end to clamp it to the bench. So let's just make sure that's lined up. So it is, that's pushed in against this perspex. The perspex is pushed against the back edge of the slot, just in case there's any tolerance, and then tighten the, I've used a long reach G clamp. I'll take that out now. It should be in the right place. And it is. So now we just need to drill that and pop a screw in. Hold the first end down, then we can do the other end. So I'm using a self-centering drill bit. It's about 2mm diameter. I'm just going to, because it's got a countersink on the outside, it will follow the countersink in the plastic. the perspex. It should just give me a hole to start the screw. Hopefully still in the right place. So once you've got the first one in at one end, then do the second one at the other end. So I've now clamped this, I'm going to drill this one. And do the same with the other 3 holes. Okay, so I've got the perspex strip screwed into this baseboard now. The slot is put in along next to it, and I've cut out this piece of 9mm birch ply, which will go in here. And of course, because of the perspex, I need to cut a slot out of the underside, so I've marked out where the slot's going to come out. I'll measure how much I need to take off here and just push that through the wood rack, and then that will go down flat, and then I can screw that into the base. So that's the rebate cut out with the router bit. So now that turns over and that will go over the top of the perspex. Just slide that in. And we just want these ply edges to come together. So once that's in position, now we can pop a couple of screws in there. And then this is slightly longer than the baseboard. I can plane that off afterwards to make it flush. So I've drilled, countersunk these front 2 screw holes, clamp this upper baseboard onto the lower baseboard, take the drill bit that I drilled the clearance hole just to make a small central spike in the middle of the hole, so that the screw hopefully starts in the right place. Before I've done all this, I've made sure this is flush, not with the perspex. The perspex projects in front of this upper ply base. Yeah, so make sure this lines up with the end stop. You want this upper ply base board to, you could glue it in I suppose, but then if you ever have to repair the perspex strip, then you need to be able to get to it, and the 5 screws for the perspex strip are underneath this. This back edge can now be planed flush with the MDF base. Then I can reference off that side and mark out for the remaining screw holes. I want this thing to be as connected to the bottom baseboard as much as possible. Okay, so the board now has 2 thrust blocks made for each end.
That's the end of part 1. Move over to part 2 now to catch up with the rest of the build. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you see here and you're new to this channel, please subscribe for more updates as they become available. Otherwise you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter or Pinterest, so that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, and see you again soon.